Hello and welcome to the YouTube podcast series of Citiesabc and Open Business Council. I'm Hilton Super, the Vice Chairman of Studium Group, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to Mykhaylo Markevich, who's the CTO and co-founder of Elomia Health. Now, this is where we interview people who are changing the world, people that are inspiring us with their achievements, their creativity, their acumen, and in particular, the use of technology. Now, in previous interviews, we've interviewed over 300 amazing people and achieved more than 16 million views on YouTube. Now, this interview series on Citiesabc is in partnership with our platform's Open Business Council, a Web3-based platform utilizing technologies that employ the use of truth and trust through the unique corporate digital identity using blockchain and the deployment of data, analytics, AI, and machine learning in its smart marketplace. So today I'd like to introduce you to Mykhailo, who's the co-founder of Elomia Health. So tell me, Mykhailo, welcome. Where are you?
I'm in Kiev.
Brilliant. It must be cold there.
Oh, it is. I nearly slept to death when running to this interview. The cold is half the problem. It's usually cold at this time in Ukraine, but the ice is really getting to me. And, it's slippery all over the place.
Oh, I'm glad you made it. So you are a machine learning developer, technology innovator, you're an entrepreneur from Ukraine, and the co-founder and CTO of Elomia Health, which is a virtual AI-powered therapist that provides emotional support to its customers. So tell me a little bit about your journey. Where did this all start? When you were at school, what was your interest in technology? Tell us all about that.
I've been asked this question quite a few times, especially recently. And it's always been a bit strange to me. Here's what I always think about when I hear this question. I know somebody, I wouldn't say we are close, but I know somebody who has this amazing thing. They remember everything. They never forget something. They can't. And I was fascinated by this process, and I asked them, "How does it feel?" And this person looked at me and said, "I don't get it. For me, it's normal. I am the one wondering how do people not remember something, how people forget." And that's when I understood them, because I'm kind of similar. I forget stuff, and I forget stuff all the time, but I always knew what I wanted. And when people ask me how you come to want this, or how did you come here, I'm always confused as to how to respond, because I was never in doubt as to what I want, or how do I want to get there. I guess when I was really small, like 7 years old, no, probably even smaller, like 5 years old, I wanted to be a firefighter. My mother did not appreciate it. I thought it was really cool. And obviously, I'm not psychic, so things that I never interacted with, I couldn't really want. And at 5 years old, I didn't even have a computer. We didn't even have a PC in our entire flat. My family didn't own one. So obviously, I couldn't know that I want to be a programmer. But ever since I first started coding, I knew that I wanted to be a programmer. And ever since I remember myself consciously, I wanted to build a business. I didn't know what startup was, and I didn't know what AI was, which actually, when people started asking me this question, I started noticing something. Especially when I started putting it like that, I started noticing the speed at which all of this is evolving. A bit more than a decade ago, my family didn't even own a computer. And now I have a million and a bit dollars of net worth in AI. Could you imagine? Like,
Yeah.
I vividly remember when I was like 11 or 12, the only thing, there were two things that came to my mind when somebody said AI. First, it was Terminator, and second, it was bots from Dota 2. You know, when, or even from Counter-Strike. For Counter-Strike, even better is when somebody leaves, they get replaced with a bot, and the bot has to play, and the bots are notoriously stupid, but they're technically, they were called AI. These were my two only interactions with AI at the time.
Yeah.
But at the age of 16, somewhere between 16 and 17, uh, I really discovered AI, and I instantly knew, as usually happens to me, that I wanted to build AIs. And I dove deeper and deeper, and I found out what natural language processing is. And again, when I was 16, it was like 16, 17, the paper attention is all you need only like came out, something like that, right? Because, yeah, it was only a few years. Uh, yeah, something like that. So
Yeah.
the paper only comes out, and that is my basically this paper and BERT, the language model, is basically the only thing in natural language processing that is remotely similar of that time to what we do today. But I take one look at the paper and I understand that this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. And a lot of people, when I tell them, they look at me like I'm insane, you know, and quite some people actually looked at me that way back then. Again, reminder, at the time, natural language processing is BERT, and everything else is like LSTMs and other stuff that has been basically stale for the past, well, LSTMs were first built in like 90s, if I'm not making a mistake.
Yeah.
And there is no money there, especially in Ukraine. Obviously, in Americas, there are like companies like Google and Facebook. They really cared about natural language processing, but there was no way you make any money in Ukraine. It used to be that there was no way. But I decided I want to do it anyway, and that basically kicked off my journey. And for my entire life, I'm 24 years old, so my life hasn't been this long, I guess. But for my entire life, the only things I've been doing uh, as a profession has been development of artificial intelligence. Uh, Despite the fact that I wanted to do natural language processing, I started with doing machine vision. I later switched to natural language processing.
Yeah. So you
That's in short.
with your interest in AI, what made you go to Kharkiv Polytechnic Institute to do applied mathematics?
Oh, that one is simple. There are two separate reasons. Uh, First one is generally, if you want to do AI, you should really do applied mathematics. I know this somehow is controversial, but it's really simple. It's and to me, it's really intuitive. From my personal experience, the only way to learn consistently, learn programming is to start programming. You don't need, it's not that computer science degrees are pointless, but to gain a skill in programming, you can only be self-taught. But when it comes to mathematics, it's basically the opposite. You can teach yourself mathematics, but to actually participate in the field, you need a very strong base, which you can only, unfortunately, gain while studying. That's the first point. So if you want to do AI, you really need an applied mathematics degree or a sort of computer science degree that incorporates a lot of mathematics in it. There's just nowhere to go. If you open basically any paper on AI, you will see a lot of math and you will basically see no programming.
Exactly. So you're making reference to the paper that you read when you were at university by Ilya Polushkin, who was one of the authors of The Attention is All You Need.
And this is the second reason I went to this specific program. In closed circles of Ukrainian mathematicians, this program has a very strong reputation. I'm trying to find diplomatic words. Well, first of all, it's very hard. But nobody says it out loud. But when when you go to student gatherings or just interact with people who are studying in university right now, and they ask you what degree are you pursuing, and you're saying applied math, they're going like, oh, and make a face like they're just like they're at the funeral, and the funeral is probably yours. And like applied mathematics degrees in Ukraine are notoriously difficult, but they're also notoriously rewarding. Ukraine has one of the strongest mathematical schools in Europe and maybe even in the world, depending on how you measure it. Unfortunately, obviously, strong mathematical degrees also imply usage of strong mathematical degrees implies usage of a lot of data in one way or the other, which also leads to a lot of mathematical talent leaving Ukraine after graduating. But I was fortunate enough to find a way to stay.
Yes, I understand. So, I mean, basically, your career is very, very short. And in that time, there's been a massive evolution in the data processing power, which has effectively enables a lot of the things that you can do today, but you couldn't do 6-7 years ago. How did you manage?
Not just 7 years ago, 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
So literally, probably even less. When we started our company, first when we started our company in the very, very beginning of the process, there was a lot of doubt whether or not it's possible at all. Very famously, our company started with a question. Our future CTO and my co-founder, Taras Pogrebnyak, came to me one day and asked me if building an AI therapist, actual full AI therapist, would be possible. And I told him not today, but it will be possible in 3 years. And if we want to be the first to market, we need to start collecting data now. And this is this predictions that I made. It was right now almost 4 years ago. So almost exactly 3 years before arrival of ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And basically our entire company is built on this prediction, and it paid off big time. But the reason we are so far ahead, despite everything that has happened, and in our country and maybe even in our personal lives, is very simple. The reason we are so far ahead is because we knew the future of the field, and nobody expected, except for us, I guess, that this boom in natural language processing will occur.
So you talk about getting data, and you predicted that AI will be able, with natural language processing, to do what you needed it to do in 3 years' time. And you said you needed to start collecting data. Where do you get the data from?
We hired a team of psychologists, and we opened a free bot on Facebook Messenger. And we basically advertised for people to come and receive free psychological support, and we would collect data. We then started slowly automating the bot. It was very funny, actually, about that, like how the outside world viewed generative AI prior to ChatGPT. I remember somewhere around year 2 of our creation, we ran our first fully automated sessions, and we instantly started receiving messages from people who refused to believe that it was written by AI. And again, way before ChatGPT, our AI was not especially, so this was like 2020, maybe 2021, but mostly 2020, right? Mm-hmm. And our AI was nowhere near as good as ChatGPT. But we already started receiving mail from people who were saying they can't believe that it's not a real person. And somebody on Facebook even called us Theranos. For those not in the know, Theranos is a company that claimed to take blood tests basically online, but instead were taking them the old-fashioned way and pretending they were taken online. So somebody wrote a very long post on Facebook claiming that we are actually faking and there are real people. Mm-hmm. Which was very fascinating because I guess, even if AI isn't that good, you have a chance of having a good conversation. And just from my point of view, because I was monitoring the bot as a whole, it was pretty bad. But I guess someone had a way to good conversation.
Yes. I mean, you've entered a really, really, really difficult space and a very rewarding space for the people who are challenged with mental health. And you're using AI-powered tools to create a safe and empathetic space where people can seek guidance, share their concerns, receive support. I mean, you've entered it's full of many issues, and you are really pioneering in your approach. How did you address all those challenges that you first faced in the beginning?
What sort of challenges? Because he faced a lot of challenges.
I know there's lots of challenges. I mean, let's take, for instance, the concept that you're dealing with a person. A person has their own mental health challenges, and they are communicating digitally with a digital enabled specialist, which is your natural language processing generative AI model. So that's a challenge, that the technology is technically more consistent, is it better, more informed than an individual therapist?
Well, that's a great question. I wouldn't necessarily give the fact that, usually the model is obviously more informed because it has an access to an infinite pool of knowledge, basically infinite pool of knowledge. But I wouldn't say that this is a big, advantage of ours, mostly because assuming obviously that the therapist is competent, you wouldn't face such an issue as therapist just not knowing the specifics that are needed to actually provide you support. Our biggest advantage is actually it is hidden in the definition of what we do. We are an AI, and our users know it, and this means that our AI is always there for you. I have a friend. He lives in Great Britain, and he had to move 3 times in the last year. And as a result, he spent 6 months in a queue to a therapist, because when he moved, he had to queue up to a different therapist. And it's very often, especially when you are only starting up, that you have to wait in queues for months to a therapist when it comes to Europe. And in America, you don't have such long queues. What you instead have is prices. According to modern statistics, something like half of all Americans can't afford regular therapy. Basically, therapy is good. If you have access to common therapy, you should try it. This is the first point. However, like half of the people can't get it either in time or financially. And the second point is the disclaimer I made about the good therapist. Unfortunately, about half of our regular users are people who were motivated, got to a therapist, and then had a really bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the biggest advantages of our model. Well, two advantages covered in one. First, it's safe in terms of you can just leave. If you talk to a model and it doesn't provide you with what you want, you just leave. You wasted like 3 minutes of your time, maybe 5. And in terms of that, it's really safe to start talking to it. Nobody is scared of an AI model that you can only communicate with through chat.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different when you have a bad experience with a therapist.
Yeah.
And the second point is our AI model is trained to support you. Your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, none of this matters to us. Fundamentally, it doesn't even matter to us if you did something wrong. It matters to us in the context of if you did something wrong, we should support you in changing your behavior, but we are not going to judge you for that because our model was specifically trained to avoid it.
Okay, so
and unfortunately, these biases are not something you can easily get rid of when you're talking about a conventional therapist.
Well, that's one of the biggest challenges of even developing AI and AI data set is inherent biases that are potentially embedded in the data set or in the algorithm, which could actually be very sensitive to individuals.
Generally speaking, yes. This is one of the greatest advantages of us as an early starter. We have this enormous amount of data, and very early on, we have, I don't know, how in tune are you with the modern generative AI scene?
I use it every day.
No, I mean this. No, obviously, and very soon everybody will be using it every day, whether they like it or not. Yeah. AI is the electricity of the 21st century. No, I mean with the science of it.
The scientific, me personally, I mean, my background is like you. I did engineering and mathematics. I've worked in quantitative asset management and statistical models, so I do understand the basis of how AI works. But for the benefit of our audience, I think it might help.
Okay.
You could just scope out in a few minutes just what is generative AI in the context of how you apply it, particularly with natural language processing.
Okay. I guess it makes sense because I really wanted to talk about the data, but I guess we have to start from the beginning.
Yes.
So the general idea is very simple. We have text on input, and we force our model to continue the text. That's basically it. That's the game of the general AI. or general game of the generative AI. Basically, there are a lot of different models, but the baseline is the same. You input text and you force the model to continue the text written. Chat general AI is you input text that ends with the utterance from the user, and then you force the model to generate an utterance from itself. That's basically how it works. It also means that these models actually can talk for you. So they also are able to generate for the user. Models don't care. This is generally how generative AI works. I don't know if there's a need to go into transformers and everything else.
Just explain to the audience what transformers are in general terms.
So the general idea, the reason the paper is called "Attention is All You Need" and the system is called self-attention is, I guess it's not that easy to explain, so I'm going to use a metaphor. Imagine you are opening YouTube and you want to see a bunch of videos with cute kittens. So you type into the search bar, cute kittens. This is your query. You then find a couple of videos. These are your values. You then you then watch the first one, the second one, and then you watch a bit of the third one and you get bored and you go away. Basically, this is how self-attention works. Yes. You look for the most relevant data and you put the most attention to this data. So instead of processing the entire text that you receive, you process bits and pieces of it to generate the response. And then you go through it again. The reason people do it that way is because this is actually how we read text. This is done in an effort to simulate human perception. When you read a word, you don't process the entire context. You only process the relevant context.
That's true. I understand that now. So your challenge was that when you were developing the database, you looked at all the different mental types.
Not exactly.
Okay.
So a step back. Okay. The thing I wanted to bring up about data is right now it's really cool and hip to collect data from GPT-4 and train your model on it. Because GPT-4 is good and you can collect a lot of data very cheaply, very fast. The problem is quality. When we first started, our first goal was quality over quantity. Like more than half of the data we generated, we ended up throwing out. This was intentional. This is not an accident. And to this day, out of all the data we generate, we keep like 30%, probably less. It turns out we were right. Although when I started doing it, it was mostly a shot in the dark. So recently, Facebook released Llama, and there were all these fine tunes, and then Facebook released the best fine tune. I believe it's called Lava, but I'm not sure. Basically, it was an instruct fine tune of their model, and turns out the fine tune that performs the best is a fine tune that they built on like 100 examples, but these examples were not generated by GPT-4, but were instead written by humans under strict supervision. Turns out quality beats quantity by a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you then framed with the data set that you had, you looked at building out a model, an AI model that was able to assess, support 44 different problem types, which included anxiety disorders, mood, different types of disorders, personality disorders, things to do with, all the sort of the thinking and conflict with feelings problems that people may have. How did you come up with the 44?
It's actually a bit funny and a bit stupid. So basically, we didn't want to do that. The whole idea was that we build a generative AI, right? So that it can attach itself to any issues that the person comes to you with. Mm-hmm. And so we can support you through anything that you need support with. Mm-hmm. However, it's right now when I say it, everybody is like, yeah, that makes sense. But back then, literally nobody knew what generative AI was. There were like people who did AI who didn't know what generative AI was. It was a toy. Nobody understood. And there was, and the problem was when we started pitching, a lot of feedback we got was, we don't understand what specifically it will help with, how it will help. Nobody understood it. Especially like the more technical people, if I were 4 years ago to sit down and talk with an AI specialist, they would probably understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying generative AI. Mm-hmm. But 4 years ago, you're talking to venture capital, nobody understood what I meant. So the advice we got was specify what we can help with and how. So we sat down with our mental health team, and we ran by scenarios. We ran scenarios through our model, and we thought where it performs and where it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And these 44 types are the types where it performs.
Okay. So what you do
where it used to perform. I would believe we haven't run the same test things because, like, again, not the point. But I would assume it performs a lot better now.
Yes. So one thing that's quite important is that you've got a strongly supported team of mental health professionals who are working with you in order to create an environment of trust and resilience in the generative AI model that you've developed at Elomia.
It's a lot less about trust for us, at least.
Yeah.
And a lot more about the fundamental philosophy of how we build AIs. Mm-hmm. And the fundamental philosophy is we concentrate on data. We our AI uses something like 16 AI models. It differs wildly. Mm-hmm. We change them all the time, but the point is a lot. Between 12 and 18, depending on when you're watching the video. Mm-hmm. If you're watching it like a year later, it may be even a lot more. But out of these models, like 3, probably less, in any way original. Most of them are fine-tunes. Mm-hmm. One statistics I like to name is the average age of AI we use is something like 6 months. So we keep switching them out all the time. Our philosophy is we concentrate on data. We collect data and then we train AIs.
Okay.
This is how we build AIs. Yes. First data, everything else is secondary. So as a result, we've spent like first 2 years of our company collecting data without having basically any AIs at all. hoping that the science will catch up, which it thankfully eventually did. But in terms of data, we, as I said before, concentrate on quality over quantity. And that means that we need to have a large team of professionals to collect this quality data. There is no other way.
Got it.
And this is the biggest reason why we have this team.
So you at Elomia, you first started and used 7,000 people in a controlled study. Can you tell us about the results of that?
So these things are a bit separate. I don't remember the exact number of people who were in a controlled study, but it was a lot less than 7,000 people. That would be uncomfortable. I hope. I might sound really stupid right now. The controlled study was like 3 years ago by now, maybe 2 years ago. So a lot of things happened since then, as you might imagine. Well, the idea was really simple. It comes back to the same thing. Today, when I say generative AI therapist, nobody is telling me, wait, this is impossible. Well, some people still are, but you get the point. There is, by now, it's not a question of if there will be an AI therapist. And it's not even a question of when there will be an AI therapist. An AI therapist is, depending on how you define it, is already here today or will be arriving in the next 2 to 3 years, depending on definition. But it's not in question anymore. There is a consensus. The only question is who will make it. But when we ran this effectiveness study years ago, nobody knew what generative AI was, and the people who were passing the study were giving feedback after the study passed. They were like, the people that talk to us really talk in strange ways, Like you're testing some bizarre therapy in here,
Yeah.
And I didn't really have the heart to ruin their mood,
So the people, when they were communicating in the study and now today, they feel that they're talking to a real person?
Depends. Some people, we generally explained what the study was about, but some people still didn't get it. That's what I'm talking about. And not only did they not get it when we explained it, but they still didn't get it when we gave it to them. Again, back then, AI is Terminator and terrible Counter-Strike bots.
And today, so now you're in a position today where you have users, significant number of users who are benefiting from using the Elomia health platform. And of course, you're continuously developing that, and you're ahead of the curve, as demonstrated by 3 years ago, 4 years ago that you started this process. Now that as the clients go through the process, is there responses and the data that you continue to collect re-informing the model and refining the model and making it much more predictive?
Yes, of course. The day AI startup stops collecting data is the day AI startup dies. Again, our motto is 3 words: data, data, data. You shake me awake at night, and I wake up screaming, data. Where is my data? And everything is data, all of it. Obviously, just to just to clarify, we don't spy on you or anything. We don't. The only information we have about you is the information you give to us voluntarily, and you can choose to skip the process completely if you feel like it. And you can also choose to delete your dialogue if you feel like it, or that entire user history. Additionally, we don't have any information on our users. And for example, all the information we have about you is your user tag. Strictly speaking, we obviously have your dialogue in our database because else our AI would not be able to respond to you because we need to keep the context. But outside of that, we don't have any.
So there's no way in which somebody can say, we need the data on XYZ because
we don't have it.
You don't have it.
But we also don't care much for it. All of the information, it might seem counterintuitive, but reality is all of the information about your age and gender and all of this information that is theoretically available doesn't matter to us. The only data that we can reliably use to train our model is the dialogue data.
The dialogue data. So it's the dialogue data which is the most important thing for the generative AI model. Okay.
Undoubtedly.
Yes.
Theoretically speaking, you can add the data about somebody's personal data to increase the quality of the responses. But we don't concentrate on it for two reasons. First of all, again, our goal is to harness the biggest advantage of AI therapy, which is making therapy anonymous. You can talk to our bot without fear that anybody else will ever know what you're talking to us about. Which also means that while we can use this data, we can't rely on it because you can choose to not provide this information, right?
Okay.
So as a result, our bot would either suffer in quality or we will choose to disregard it.
Yes.
The information.
In terms of the data that you have, the generative AI model is generating the responses in accordance to the inputs, etc., and the parameters, how you parameterize the model. But if you had to look at the data and look at the data set in terms of age, gender, demographies, regions, etc., is it the same across all these? Is it sort of agnostic of these type of these factors?
You mean like the quality of the result?
Yes.
The result agnostic. Yeah. So this is a question that's not easy to answer because obviously cultures around the world differ.
Yeah.
And people differ as a result. On one hand, obviously, the whole point of psychology as a science is empirical research and proof that humans are more the same than they are different, right? So most of the laws of human behavior are universal. But the other side of the coin is the fact that the absolute majority of psychological research is done either in US period or in the West in general, which is also similar in culture, meaning that even a professional therapist only has this much they can do. Because research is only conducted over there, right? And alternatively, in terms of the demographics of people who use us, and considering that they keep using us, we are successful for them. We have people all over the world, literally. Almost every country has consistent users, We even had some users from Somali, which really impressed me. I mean, I don't know very much about Somali, but I guess I would need some therapy if I leave.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a country that, in fact, war-torn countries are essentially regions where this type of support is not accessible to many people, and
It's
therefore,
not just that. People who struggles the most with reaching out are the people whose psychological problems are caused by misuse of power by other people, because these are the people who struggle the most being vulnerable.
mm-hmm.
And we've received like a dozen letters from people who say that we saved their lives, and mostly we saved their lives by convincing them to reach out to a professional when they were already thinking of of giving up.
Yes,
In a like definitive way.
mm-hmm. So
And just a short note there. It's especially bad in countries in people who either survived abuse or in people who've seen war, because these are the sorts of events that show you, that the other side of humanity, and it really can derail your perception,
mm-hmm.
if it makes sense.
I mean, this is very encouraging to hear that your reach is so far, and that from an empirical perspective, you've had an impact on many people who have suffered trauma and abuse. In terms of how does the platform and the generative AI model parameterize it itself in a way in which there are triggers to provide people with some serious support who are in a very critical mental state? How do you train the model to recognize that and then provide advice to prevent a tragedy?
So, three things. First, we have a separate model that deals with such people. Second, we have a so-called red button algorithm. I called it that back when, like 2 years ago, when we ran our first test on automated therapy. Taras told me, the CEO, he told me that he wouldn't approve such test unless we have an automated system that would oversee the condition of the users if somebody is suicidal, so that we can, because back then again we not only did we not have confidence in capabilities of our AI to actually support such people, but we actually knew pretty well that our AI is not capable of that at the time. All right. So what we would do is we would redirect these people to a psychologist that we had on shift.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
And well, back then, it's not needed anymore, thankfully. We'll get to it in a moment. And he told me that, and I understood that I have only a day to make it, or we'll have to postpone. And I looked through the data sets, and I found data sets of basically last posts of people who committed suicide. And I also found a diary of a girl who committed suicide, where you could see her condition deteriorate. And I've spent an entire day and night. I ended up working till 5 a.m. Meticulously analyzing the text and building AI models and testing them. Again, it's easy today because today you just put all this data. Today we run probably the most advanced safety algorithm in the world. We have over 90% accuracy on the metrics of people,
in distress.
Yeah. In distress, but also people who are minors and all sorts of things. Back then, it was only the people who were threatened, and not much else. I achieved satisfactory quality, and I pushed it. And this was around the time when we received our first letter. And this was around the time, again, I'm not important side note. I'm an AI guy. I'm not a therapist. So a lot of these things were new to me, especially, 2 years ago. And I wasn't just an AI guy like 4 years ago, right? I wasn't just an AI guy. I was also 19 years old. So then I didn't even have much life experience. But this was when we pushed our first AI, was also around the time when we received our first letter from the person saying that we saved their life. And it didn't make much sense to me at the time, but because our bot wasn't really all that good at the time. But I got an amazing explanation from our chief I don't know how to say it in English, but basically Anastasia has a PhD in psychology, and she's an associate professor of psychology in Kharkiv Polytechnical University, and she's in charge of psychology in our company. And she explained something to me, something amazing. I never thought of it that way, but turns out the reality is the stereotypes about suicidal people, that you say something wrong to them and they go jump off the cliff, is wrong. That's not how it works. Suicidal behavior is something that builds up and up and up until you feel like you're drowning, until you feel like there's no other way for you. And turns out that for many of these people, all you need to do to prevent the first is you just need to keep them talking.
Yes.
And if you look at the statistics of suicides, the absolute majority of suicides per hour happen between 11 p.m. and 2 to 3 a.m. And the reason these suicides happen is because there is nobody to talk to you at the time. There is no therapist, and there aren't even friends or family who you can talk to. And you are left alone, feeling like you're drowning. And this is usually how the letter goes. The person says that they were, on the verge, but we kept them talking until they felt better and they were able to get through the episode. And so in terms of the strategy, this is our strategy, basically to help you get through this. No advices or anything like that. And the second strategy is first you help the person calm down, and second you convince them to reach out to professional help. Because right now, today, we are good, but we are not good enough to actually, do crisis therapy. This is not our specialization, and we would much rather avoid it anyway, because this is a sort of responsibility. It's a very serious responsibility. That's all I can say. Does this make sense?
It does make absolute sense. I'm in awe because I see exactly what role you're playing playing here in terms of providing this hyper-realistic experience where a user is seeking mental health support. Unlike a chatbot, the conversations are very real, like they're speaking to a real human being, and you're keeping people talking. And as people are talking, they are going through the process of reconciling all the issues and challenges that they have in terms of mental health, whether it's anxiety, stress, depression, or burnout, or whatever. And so you're being very effective in the impact, because, I mean, the surveys that you've conducted in terms of support is very, very high. And the fact is that it's continuous communication. And I think that's probably the most important things, that somebody feels that they are being listened to.
Yeah, the best explanation about what it feels like that I received from people is all these things building up. It's like you are in a bottle, and there is water in it, and it keeps filling up until you feel like you're drowning. But when you start talking to anybody who will actually listen and support you, it feels like this water is leaving the bottle, like it's flowing out. And the way we were able to save these people, even though, again, not exactly our intention, just things that unfortunately happens with our bot too, is that these people feel like they're drowning. They're looking for any way that would, for any hole where you can poke so that the water would flow out. And this is what we do. We keep talking to you, and the water keeps flowing out until 1 second you realize that you're no longer drowning. So the problem is probably still there, which is why the main goal of this specific interaction is to convince you to reach out to a professional, because we can let the water out, but we can't make sure that it doesn't keep flowing in after you stop talking to us.
So if anybody watching this podcast needs to be able to contact you or get support from Elomia Health, how best would it be for them to contact you or engage?
We have an app, and we have a website. On the website, we have a free demo. You only need to enter your email, and that's it. Just to solidify this point. If you really need help, if it's serious, please reach out to a professional. We will always be here. Our bot will not tell you to fuck off or anything like that. But you should really go to a professional if it's bad. Just general.
Absolutely. And then you're there to support anybody anyway through your URL, your website, which is Elomia. Just give us the exact.
All you need to do is Google Elomia. You will find our website. It's elomia.com, but you will find our website on Elomia. This is actually a funny story, if you don't mind switching to something more lighthearted.
Yes.
So we needed a name for our AI, and we wanted, because it seems like people trust women more than men. They feel it's easier to open up to them. And we wanted a name that would sound feminine, and we wanted it to seem like an actual name. But we didn't want something cheesy, because we wanted people to take us seriously. And we tried some real names, but it either felt too real or the name was already taken by some celebrity, and we didn't want, to fight them on the algorithm. So we generated our name with AI. We wrote a simple AI that would generate potential names, and we picked one, and it was Elomia. You know what happened then? We spent like a year with that name, and we already grown into it, and everybody knew us as Elomia. And then we receive a message on our Facebook page where somebody writes to us, guys, did you know that your name backwards reads as AI Mole? And I was like, oh God. So there is that.
On that note,
Yeah.
Mykhailo, thank you very much indeed for a very, very, very interesting hour spent talking about Elomia and how it came to light, and the hard work that you've done, and the great service that you are now providing to people who require some support in this hyper-realistic experience where you feel like speaking to a real human being if you really need to have some support. And so thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been really, really enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for viewing and engaging with today's podcast. If you're interested in knowing more about citiesabc.com with openbusinesscouncil.org, go to our platforms, as well as you can also find me on social media and direct message me, Hilton Super, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And do go to the other interviews we have done on YouTube. And don't forget to like and comment. So thank you very much for your time and engaging with this interview today on Citiesabc.